We got island vibes here on NFL Live. Who wore it better? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Andy Reid or Mina Kimes? The answer is, of course, Mina, though Andy is not.
They both love a great cheeseburger.
They do. That's a good point. That's a really good point right there. Great stuff from our fashion queen and our fashion icon, Andy Reid. Let's talk AFC West. Just a different team, not the Chiefs in the AFC West. As the Raiders offseason has featured a bunch of splashes, perhaps none larger than trading for all-pro wide receiver Davante Adams from Green Bay. Here's head coach Josh McDaniels on the move to acquire one of the league's very best players.
He's been a premier player for a long time, and I really, I have a great deal of respect for him as a player. He wins on third down, he wins in the red zone. He's a very well-rounded player, and he deserves the credit as well as the people that have coached him in Green Bay. And getting to meet him last week and really sit down and talk with him, it's easy to see why this guy has been successful.
Other than a little more color in the palette, what is the Raiders' biggest need? I'm talking fashion-wise so far. I mean, what's the biggest need for the Raiders this offseason now?
Yeah. Well, the list of needs they have has certainly shrunk because they've been so active in free agency. Just looking at their roster, I see far fewer holes. One that does jump out to me on offense is right tackle. Of course, they drafted Alex Leatherwood from Alabama last year. He's more of a guard for them, so I think that's a position they need to address. And then on the other side of the football, I think in the secondary, both safety and cornerback, again, there is some talent there. Trevon Merrick from last season, who they drafted, had a good early start. And then Nate Hobbs really broke out in the slot. But I think they can still make some additions to augment their pass defense.
Man, the AFC West is just so loaded. Let's keep it right there in the AFC West, as it's no secret that the Chargers' biggest week since last season was their defense, believe it or not. They ranked 29th in points allowed, last in third down conversion percentage, and 26th in red zone efficiency. Clearly, they've looked to address that this offseason, acquiring multiple defensive players. That includes Khalil Mack, plus ball hawk J.C. Jackson in free agency. Their head coach, Brandon Staley, talked about their approach this offseason earlier today.
When you have a quarterback, it's not just surrounding him with offensive weapons. It's surrounding him with a complete team where the pressure isn't on him every single game to score 35, to throw for 350, to bring you back. And I think that's what we're trying to do is surround Justin and all of our players with a complete team.
So, Dan, it's certainly been a big spending spree for them this offseason. What do they need to do in a month at the draft?
Find their right tackle Rashawn Slater version. I'd say that's the only hole of their football team right now is really the right side of their offensive line. And they did such a phenomenal job on hitting on that left tackle. If they get on the right side at right tackle, a 60% type of performer that Slater was as a rookie, I think you can make the case that this is the most talented roster in the NFL. I also found it really interesting hearing Brandon Staley make the comment of not asking him to do so much and having to bring us back. I do think one of the things that organizationally I want to see them do is, like Brandon Staley at the forefront, learn the coaching aspect of it, really, like the aggression versus when and where and how and time and place, all that stuff. I think that's going to help Justin Herbert as well.
I look forward to another season worth of conversations about should they have gone for it or not as it pertains to Los Angeles Chargers. Again, we'll stay in the AFC West, and now we'll go to the Broncos, who made one of the biggest moves of the NFL offseason when they traded for Russell Wilson, of course, from the Seahawks. His new head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, knew it was real the moment pen was actually put to paper. He's thrilled to work with a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. He talks about what's next for him and Wilson earlier on today.
Once he gets here, that'll be in April. So that's when we'll be able to talk football. So up to this point, he's part of the team. And then we talk, just getting to know each other. I think that this game's very, very important for relationships. And just ours, especially because it's such a high-pressure situation. Getting to know each other, understanding how he works, how I work. We want to be sure that the two of us are on the same page. And so I think that right now it's just about relationships. And then as we get to that April 11th mark, now we can start diving into the system as much as we can.
Mina, once these two get together, do you expect this to look like a Seattle offense from years past, or will Hackett try to get Russ to conform to a brand new system?
I expect Russell Wilson to look like Russell Wilson. And I want to be clear before Dan accuses me of being salty. He's going to be great. He's an elite quarterback. What he does is amazing. It's clearly a massive upgrade for Denver. However, in the past, in Seattle, we have seen attempts at schematic changes, whether Brian Schottenheimer going more pass-heavy on early downs or bringing in Shane Waldron from the Rams. offensive system. Russell Wilson does what Russell Wilson does. Doesn't really use the middle of the field. He's going to take a lot of sacks. He's also going to have magical moments and incredible deep ball. He's very accurate. That's just who he is, and I just don't believe that at this point in his career, he's going to change his style because he has a new coach.
You talking about Carson Wentz or
wow?
No, I'm just playing. That's my second one today. I get your point. This is what I would say to you is I think that you have heard me say this a lot when it comes to this offense. Nathaniel Hackett's going to run this Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak offense that when it starts with the quarterback, everything becomes listening to your feet. And it's one hitch here, two hitch here, three hitch there. And I don't care if you played in the NFL for 8 years or 1 year. The more he does that or the quicker he gets accustomed to that, the more efficient he is going to be. The thing that I would point out to you, Mina, is like it is demanded in this offense. I've watched it kind of happen in Green Bay over the past couple years. There are going to be plays that they are just, we call them call it and run it. Series, C-I-R-I, call it, run it. There's going to be stuff where you take that playmaking away from him, and it's going to mandate that he plays in the structure of the offense because that's the best way for the offense to operate. You don't agree with
That's
me?
just not how he plays football. I mean, some of it is because of his size, quite frankly. He's been able to compensate for that over the course of his career with his elusiveness. And Dan, to your point about the Shanahan system and whether or not we can see him do some of the things, under the center bootleg, all of that, I think it's going to come down to whether he's still as elusive as he's been in the past. Just because of who he is, his size, the way he plays. He's not going to be your Kirk Cousins style quarterback and, you know, that sort of efficient in-structure game you've been describing.
I don't think he has to, but two examples I will give you are Matthew Stafford with the Rams did that a lot throughout this season. And again, Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay had a couple-year stretch where it was a little bit too much freelance, and he's even been reined in by this offense.
Will be very, very, very fun to watch. And the discourse between the two of you should be very interesting this upcoming season. Hey, you may have heard the Browns, of course, recently acquired Deshaun Watson in their blockbuster trade. Baker Mayfield still on the roster as things presently stand. Here's head coach Kevin Stefanski on the next move involving the former #1 overall pick.
Yeah, I think we'll see. I think everybody understands the situation, and we're hoping that there's closure to it at some point. I think it's a unique situation. Got to see how it plays out. I know all of us you'd love an answer yesterday, but that's not the reality of it.
Mina, I sort of feel like the Browns have kind of given up their leverage if they had any left over. What are the options for Cleveland at this point?
You know, first of all, you're absolutely right about the leverage. A lot of that is just the way the quarterback market has shaken out, especially by the way, you know, Russell Wilson going to Denver, Matt Ryan going to Indy. All of a sudden, the potential bidders for Baker's services declined, and to the point where you're really just looking at Seattle, maybe Carolina. So the way I see it, Cleveland only has a couple of options. One, they hold on to Baker. Hopefully, you know, if Deshaun Watson is suspended, as many suspect, he can maybe rebuild his value by playing a little bit, or another team loses their quarterback and they can trade him to a squad that needs him. The other, I think, is that they do a trade, but they basically get nothing in return. Heck, they might even have to give up a pick to get that $19 million off their books, because these trades are not based solely on talent. They're based on leverage, and that is just something Cleveland doesn't have.
I mean, my mind goes to Ryan Tannehill, and maybe not the player, like, specifically in comp to Baker Mayfield, but the situation. When he was traded from Miami to Tennessee, Miami got a 4th-round pick and a 7th-round pick from Tennessee. Tennessee got Tannehill and a 6th-round pick. Now, if you had asked me 2 weeks ago what the Browns should ask for, I'd be like, ask for a 2nd-round pick or a 3rd-round pick. To your point, the leverage, it just doesn't seem like that's going to be realistic. So I think they need to have their mindset dropped just a little bit. But if you can get a 5th-round pick or something, or a 6th-round pick for a Baker Mayfield, and you flip back a 4th round, you know what I'm saying, where you get creative with that. I think that Tannehill and that trade is a perfect example, because I also think that there's value in Baker Mayfield. And I would say that this almost is going to be like teams having to go back to the college time when you have to do all your background checks on a player before drafting them. I think you got to do a good job background checking and figuring out what happened in Cleveland, because I do believe this is similar to Carson Wentz, where it's not just about on the field.
Right. Well, trades are about circumstances, by the way. The Rams traded Robert Woods for a 2023 6th-round pick. The Cowboys traded Amari Cooper for basically 30 spots of draft order priority.
Because of money?
It's money.
I got
It's
you.
basically a salary depth
Yeah.
now, which is where Cleveland likely is.